Hello everyone, and today we're going to be having a look at the long-awaited branded Buster Blader. To be honest, trying to sift through all the different versions of this you could possibly play has been a bit of a task, and finding something that is both powerful but also consistent. Something I've found a problem with when it came to a lot of things that are already out there, as well as a lot of my own early prototypes, is that they had a pretty ridiculous endboard. They just weren't very consistent, so we've eventually whittled it down to something like this. Again, whether or not this is a finished product, I'm not sure. There's not a lot of improvements I can think to make. There are small changes you can make, but I can't deem any of them improvements as such. They more take the deck in a more sideways direction. But yes, it's relatively straightforward. Generally speaking, you've got your branded stuff and your Buster Blader. So branded and Buster Blader, they very much interact with each other as well as function as two separate individual deck types. That means you essentially have 18 starter cards in this deck. So you've got your 3 copies of the Whelp, 3 copies of Trap Tricks, 3 copies of Prologue. That's usually your 9 starters for your Buster Blader. Then for your branded plays, you have 3 copies of Aliber, 3 copies of Branded Opening, and 3 copies of Branded Fusion. You can also count Spriggan's Kit as well, bringing that up to a total of 20 starters, making half of your deck starter cards. I just don't like Kit as much. It's just a worse version of Aliber, but I thought the extra consistency was a requirement in this version of the deck. Plus, it's neat to be able to shuffle your Buster Bladers back from your hand back into the deck. That's why I felt comfortable enough dropping this to 2 instead of playing 3. The kit does help you shuffle this back in on occasion, so that is something that does come up. But yeah, again, the deck is relatively straightforward. You've all seen Buster Blader before on the channel time and time again. You've all seen the Mirror Jade not only on the channel but also in ranked time and time again. Now we're gonna get in the game number 1 here and see how they work together. If you like what you're seeing and you want to see anything else like this, then again, leave your suggestions down below. Feel free to subscribe to catch any videos as they're coming out. And again, really appreciate the support now that we're getting since I've come back off the trip. We're slowly building it back up in terms of trying to reclaim the momentum we lost. But again, thank you very much for everyone who is currently watching. And yeah, let's get into game number 1. Alrighty, getting into game number 1 here. We have a very good hand here. We have a starter for both our Despia and our Buster Blader combos. Our opponent's playing a very interesting deck. I feel like early ranked is a very interesting place to be. This guy is playing, I don't even know how to pronounce their name. He's going to summon out here. He's going to actually summon a really cool monster. So he's using Dark Lair here with Diablos. He's going to summon Diablos out of the field here as well. Then he's actually going to Exceed Summon into the Zombie Vampire, which is one of the new cards that were released here. Basically, this guy's effect allows you to detach a material to send the top 4 cards of both decks to the graveyard. Then you choose any monster out of the sent cards and summon it to your field. So that's really cool. Again, luckily we have the Veiler in hand. We're going to be stopping that. We don't need him sending anything like our Buster Bladers to the graveyard and stealing them on us. That would not work out. Our opponent at this point doesn't have very many more plays, so he's going to use his Darkest Lair to grab a token and pass back to us. So luckily we had the Veiler here to stop that from getting out of hand. We've also got Called by the Grave should it come up. Gonna normal summon the Whelp. Whelp's gonna search our deck for Prologue. Prologue gets your whole package going. Branded Opening's gonna grab our Aliber as well. Aliber, of course, grabbing Branded Fusion. And this is where we're going to go. Now, important thing to note. You cannot use a Linkuriboh on the same turn use Branded Fusion. Do not go into Linkuriboh. For obvious reasons. Again, I'm not trying to insult anyone's intelligence. Branded Fusion brings out Lebellion here. We're going to discard the Imperm because, again, we're not planning on giving our opponent very many more opportunities to use monster effects. We're going to grab Ad Libitum from Tragedy, and Lebellion will, of course, fusion summon into Mirror Jade, the Ice Blade Dragon. Now, luckily, we're going second, so we can send Albion to banish our opponent's monster instead of needing to banish one of our own. Take out his token, slap him on the wrist there for 400 damage, set 2, and pass. Now, Albion during the end phase will, of course, grab us the Branded in red, and Darkest Lair doesn't summon any tokens to our field because we didn't tribute anything. So we're going to preemptively, in the draw phase, activate Prologue of the Destruction Sword, and this is where an important bit of synergy comes in. The dragon in our graveyard would be the Albion the Branded Dragon if we didn't have the Whelp in the graveyard. Luckily we do already. So So we're going to use Prolong to send memories in the Buster Blader to the graveyard to summon the Buster Dragon, banish memories to fusion summon using monsters in the graveyard into the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. So we summon our Dragon Destroyer and summon out our Buster Dragon. So now all of our opponent's monsters become dragons, and all of their dragons cannot activate their effects. Now he's going to go for another monster here. We decide preemptively we're going to use our Branded in Red because we want rid of this layer of darkness. So long as this is face up, he holds the possibility of just tributing one of our monsters for an effect, and at that point it wouldn't be reactable. So we don't really want to be doing that. We're going to preemptively hit him with the Branded in Red here, add our Tragedy back, fuse 3 into the Guardian Chimera. Guardian Chimera then is pop 1, draw 2 in this situation. We summon back our Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade also gets to banish a monster. Our opponent doesn't stand a chance, and they realize it and scoop it up. So really sort of straightforward game here. Again, you saw the Buster Blader engine functioning as it normally does. You saw the Branded as well, getting off just off of the Branded opening by itself. So yeah, lots of potential power there, lots of plays, and our opponent really just couldn't do anything about that. So let's get into game number 2. Alright, getting into game 2 here, we have a pretty decent opening hand here as well. We're gonna go for our Whelp, grabbing our Prologue. This is gonna be fairly similar to the first game here. But again, our deck has so many starters, it's unreal. We're going to summon out Lebellion here off of Branded Fusion, get rid of our Tragedy. This is us going first, which is ideal. Tragedy is going to add Ad Libitum to your hand like it would in any other deck. Lebellion is going to fuse into Mirror Jade. And this is where the synergy I was talking about before comes up. So we need to get Albion to the graveyard to search for Branded in Red. We're going to banish our Whelp. Now, normally that would mean we no longer have a dragon in our graveyard as a target for Prologue. Except we have Albion, so that's another big part of synergy that comes in here, and is something I'm a big fan of. That is a problem that some versions of Buster Blader have. They don't have the consistency of having a dragon in the graveyard if they don't open up the Whelp. Now, our opponent just turbo sets 4 and passes straight to us, so we're gonna go Branded in Red here in the end phase to try and pop one. We add back the Tragedy, and then we're gonna fuse the 3 into the Chimera. Now, Chimera is going to be pop 1, draw 2 in this situation, so we're going to choose an opponent's card to pop. We're not using our Prologue yet. We don't want to jump the gun on it just at this moment in time. Our opponent's going to go for Droplet, though, discarding their Numeron Calling. So it shows we're playing against the Numeron deck here, but it's going to be an interesting twist. We're going to grab Alibur as well off of our Tragedy just for some follow-up. Ad Libitum, of course, reviving the all-powerful Mirror Jade, and Chimera not resolving because it got negated. Now, passes back to our turn here. If we go into draw phase, we're going to summon out the Alibur just to search for another card. Our opponent hits us with that Solemn Judgment right off the bat, but as far as I can see, that opens us up for direct lethal damage, so we swing with Mirror Jade. Our opponent goes for Conquistador, they go for Guardian, and then lastly they're going to go for the Scarlet Sanguine. So our opponent's play here, they're going to summon out the Golden Lord, then they're going to reduce one of our attack points to 0, then they're going to pop one of our cards. Now that's not going to work because we have Ash Blossom. So we're going to negate the searching of the card here, and our opponent at this point scoops it up. And of course they do, they've got no play, we've got lethal. He would have summoned out his 2 monsters, and part of why he scooped is, you look at these 2, you look at those 2, okay, Mirror Jade banished 1, but he still survives this turn. He most assuredly does not. The Prologue can then at that stage be activated to summon out the Buster Dragon and the Buster Blader. Buster Blader does piercing damage and will have 4,800 attack. It swings over one of them for around 2,000 to 3,000 damage. Banish the other one with Mirror Jade, direct attack for lethal off of Chimera. So that was most assuredly lethal then on that turn. He didn't have anything he could have done about that. So yeah, dead simple. Not really much else to talk about there. We didn't actually summon the Buster Blader and the dragon, but it would, like, that was going to be the next play. I'm sure you can use your imagination and envision it. It's just very difficult to get good games to actually record, in terms of, like, most people just scoop 3-1 as soon as something doesn't go well for themselves. At least that was pretty much a win. But yeah, let's get into game number 3. Alrighty, getting into game 3 here. We're going second, which isn't a good start. We do have Spriggan's Kit in our hand. We have Branded in Red and Infinite Impermanence. So our hand is actually looking pretty damn good. We've got a couple of starters in there. We've got some power. Our opponent's going to go for that Aliber here. We decided to let that resolve, hoping to hit Lebellion, but they also have the branded Lost, which is a massive, massive detriment to this deck. That means his Lebellion is protected when it's summoned. We cannot respond to the summoning of his fusion monsters, meaning we cannot imperm the Lebellion. So he's going to fusion summon in the Mirror Jade here. That's the step at which we were hoping to interrupt him, was that step. But such is life. He's also got the Mercurier here as well, which is going to pose a problem. And lastly, of course, he's going to set the branded in red during the end phase. So we know he has a branded in red Mercurier and 1 face down card. So that's likely at least 3 interruptions and a 4th one off of the Mirror Jade coming back. We're going to go for Spriggan's Kit here. He's going to discard his Mercurier to stop that one early. That's fine as far as we can see. Again, we don't have a ton of other plays. We're going to set 3, hoping he snipes the wrong card, and then we're just going to have to sit and pray. Our opponent adds back the Ad Libitum, fuses 3 into the Guardian Chimera. He's going to get to pop one of our cards here, of course, and the one he's going to choose will decide basically how the rest of this game goes. The Ad Libitum then, of course, is going to resummon the Mirror Jade from his banished pile, and the Branded Lost is going to search him a card that lists the Fallen of Albaz in his description. So he's got an awful lot going on here. Draw 2, add 1, so freaking +3'd on us there, basically, and then he also gets his Mirror Jade, which is going to activate to preemptively banish our Kit, getting yet another Albion. Now at this stage we decided to use Ash Blossom because we can't really use Ash Blossom on anything else, because we can't respond to his fusion summons. So at this point he picked out our branded in red. That was the best possible hit for him because we don't have anything left here that we can do. But our opponent has the Harpy's Feather Duster. And I'm going to spare you the heartache here. I'm going to fast forward through this last little bit. Trap Trick would have grabbed Prologue, but it doesn't have a chance to activate a Resolve. And that's game. Now, that was a really quick one. Because I wanted to highlight the fact that the deck still has the same old problems. It's still going to suffer highly against things like Harpy's Feather Duster. If you're really dedicating yourself to the Buster Blader play like I should have done, it will be much smarter to activate Trap Trick and thus your Prologue during the draw phase of your opponent's turn. The only reason we didn't is we were getting a little bit confident. We were going to wait until after we used our Imperm. I figured there's no way he's going to have Spell or Trap removal in that deck because almost nobody plays it. It's mostly monster removal. And it just got the better of us in that situation. We were hoping to get used to the Imperm as well. Unfortunately, it just wasn't to be. But I mean, what can you do? You know, you can't win them all. Let's get into the deck profile. We're going to talk about the actual build and some of the synergy and combos between the two archetypes. So let's jump into that now. Alrighty, getting into the deck profile then. So first things first, as we always do, we're going to talk about the hand traps and remove them from the list to simplify what we're looking at. We've got the double Veiler, we've got double Maxi, double Ash Blossom, double Call by the Grave, and double Impermanence. So we've got 10 hand traps in the deck. I wanted to modify the deck to the point where it could fit a decent number of them in. Initially it only played 6 or something like that, which wasn't very suitable. So we wanted to fit in a couple extra, you know, because again, especially in a deck like this that struggles so much going second, you want to have something you can do to your opponent if you're going second. It really will change sort of how the game works. You don't want a card that's just, you don't want this deck with no hand traps in it. It's not going to work out for you. But yeah, this is what we're looking at. Now we're going to start with, again, we're just going to go through card for card very, very briefly, and then we're going to talk about some of the combos afterwards. So Buster Wealth of the Destruction Sword. On summon, you're going to search your deck for Prologue. That's it. The Prologue's your main starter card, so Whelp searches for it. Buster Dragon, Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. If this card is in your graveyard, you can equip it using your Buster Dragon onto your Buster Blader to lock your opponent out of the extra deck. It doesn't resolve very often, but when it does, it's usually very powerful. Tragedy, whenever it's sent to the graveyard or banished by a card effect, search for a Despia monster. It can also banish itself from the graveyard to reset a branded spell or trap. So usually you're just sending this to the graveyard off of your branded fusion to search for a monster. Usually you're ad libitum. We got double Fallen of Albaz. We just need it for its name, nothing else. You can cut this to 1, you can play it to 3, you do you. The only thing that matters is its name. The triple Aliber, the Jester of Despia, pretty much just a search for branded fusion. If you already have branded fusion, it grabs your branded in red. So just generally a consistency card, very strong starter. kit as well is basically the same thing. It will search your deck for a branded spell or trap card, or one that is banished during your graveyard, and add it back to your hand. But as cost, you need to shuffle a card from your hand back into your deck afterwards. So I mean, the cost can be useful in this specific deck because you can shuffle your Buster Blader back into the deck. This is a completely dead card in your hand, and it needs to be in your deck for your prologue to resolve. Speaking of which, it's the next card up here. This guy's here for his name and nothing else. He has a hard brick. You do not want to see him in your hand. Technically, he can be summoned off of the Protector Whelp quite easily, but you do not use this card very often, like at all. In this particular version, because it's so heavy on fusion and locking you out of link summoning and such, you're really not going to use this guy very often. So playing it at 2 is fine. I wouldn't play it at 1 because if you draw it or if it's sent to the graveyard or anything like that, your entire Buster Blader engine is dead. So 2 is fine. Ad libitum is here to be used as fusion material. Search it off of Despia. If this guy is involved in a fusion summon, you get to resurrect one of your level 8 or higher fusion monsters, primarily your Mirror Jade. You've all seen the branded combo, but we'll cover it briefly in a moment. 3 copies of branded fusion. Summon out a Fallen of Albaz fusion monster using your deck as material. So normally you'll fuse your Fallen of Albaz with your Despian Tragedy to summon out your Lebellion the Searing Dragon. And then Tragedy will search for a card, Lebellion will activate again to summon out your Mirror Jade. We'll get to that in a moment. Branded Fusion is of course one of the more powerful cards, not only in this deck, but in the game at the moment. Branded Opening, discard a card to special summon Aliber from the deck basically, that's all it really does. It's also got a useful effect where if it's in the graveyard and one of your fusion monsters will be destroyed, you can banish this card instead, which is honestly arguably the more useful effect. I really am a fan of that one, so this is pretty cool. Love myself some Branded Opening. It does take care of a big problem where they used to be able to just nuke one of your two combo pieces, either your Buster Blader or your Buster Dragon. This at least protects the Buster Blader. Buster Dragon's gonna have to fend for itself, but they can't get rid of the Buster Blader, which they usually prefer to do. Branded in red is one of your primary fusion spell cards as a follow-up. Target a Despia or Fallen of Albaz in your graveyard, add it to your hand, then fusion summon using your hand and field. Normally you're going to summon the Chimera off of this, but we'll get to that in a moment. Into the traps, we have double Destruction Sword Memories. You can cut this card down to 1 in this specific version. I didn't have any issues where I was bricking on this, so I haven't cut it down to 1, but you can totally cut this down. Its only real effect, that has a whole load of text, but basically you can banish this and materials from your graveyard to conduct a fusion summon for your Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. That's really the only thing this card does. It has like a second effect here about summoning a Buster Blader, but it doesn't happen. The only reason we've got 2 copies is so that we can banish one to set one off of Trap Trick, and it also provides us with a second fusion ability. However, in this particular deck, Lebellion also gives us that. So this card isn't nearly as necessary to play at 2, so you can totally play it at 1, but I've had it at 2. Prologue is the main starter card of the Buster Blader engine. It's very, very straightforward. You are sending from your deck to the graveyard a Buster Blader as well as a Destruction Sword card to summon out your Buster Dragon. So what you will send is you will send your Destruction Sword Memories to the graveyard and your Buster Blader to the graveyard. Then you'll be able to banish this, your Buster Blader, and a dragon, any dragon, from your graveyard to fusion summon out your Buster Blader. So this gets the whole combo going. It summons out the Buster Dragon, which changes all their monsters to dragons, and then it summons out the Buster Blader, which changes all their dragons to defense and prevents all of their dragons from activating. So that's your 2-card combo, and it's achieved off of just this trap card. And then we have Trap Trick. Banish any normal trap in your deck to set another copy of it. So this searches Prologue basically. It can also search for Imperm, which is part of why we play Imperm at least 2. You can bump it up to 3 if you want. It's a normal trap, so it can be searched off of Trap Trick as well if you really want to. But yes, that's pretty much the deck. It's really straightforward. In terms of the extra deck as well, there's not a lot going on that we don't already know. We have the Buster Blader and the Buster Dragon. Again, that's your 2-card combo. This changes everything into dragons, and the Buster Blader negates all their dragons. So it's that simple. That's just a 2-card combo. You have Lebellion and Mirror Jade here, which are your primary Branded Fusion targets. So you summon out Lebellion off of Branded Fusion. Lebellion's effect will then allow you to to shuffle back into your deck to fusion summon out your Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade is of course non-targeting banishment by sending one of these clowns to the graveyard, and that's the only reason any of these guys are in the deck. So he sends one of those 3 to the graveyard, non-targeting banishment once every 2 turns. He also, when he's sent to the graveyard by your opponent, will at the end of that turn nuke their board. Really straightforward. Basically, these 2, whenever they're sent to the grave, at the end of the turn you get to add or summon the Fallen of Albaz. This guy, when he's sent to the graveyard at the end of the turn, you will set your branded in red. So really straightforward. Guardian Chimera is here to be summoned off of the branded in red, just a really powerful fusion monster. You need at least 3 different monsters, at least 1 in the hand and at least 1 on the field. For every monster on the field you use, you destroy an opponent's monster. For every card in the hand you use, you draw a card upon summon. So really solid. Buster Dragon we talked about. Linkuriboh is purely here to make this a 1-card combo. Normal summon your Whelp, search for Prologue, link summon in the Linkuriboh, you now have a dragon in the graveyard, and this will allow you to go into the full Buster Blader play. So this is here purely to facilitate that. Protector Whelp is here in case you break on a Buster Blader, but honestly you will never use this card in this version of the deck. You can cut this for something else if you want. Not that you're gonna need Linkuriboh. You can cut this if you want to play like a second Albion, or if you want to play, I don't know, Starving Venom for the Albaz on occasion. You can play whatever you want in that slot. I've just got this guy in for, I don't know, memento's sake. And lastly, Verte Anaconda, just because it's a 1-card Mirror Jade. So it is, so if you send Branded Fusion off of this guy to the graveyard, you can fuse it and your Albaz to go straight in the Mirror Jade, skipping over the Lebellion step. So if your Lebellion gets negated, banished, otherwise dealt with, and you still need a way to go in the Mirror Jade, at least on your following turns, your Predaplant allows you to do so. Or again, it's just a straight up good card if you can summon out 2 effect monsters. Which is the easiest thing in this deck to do, to be honest, because most of the time, if you're summoning more than once, you're doing so like off of the likes of Branded Opening, which isn't ideal because it locks you out of links, but whatever, we're not going to jump down that rabbit hole. But yes, the Prologue combo we've talked about. Make sure you've got a dragon in the grave. This guy will send these 2 to the graveyard. That's the play done. Activate Memories Engrave, summon out your 2 boss monsters. It is that easy. It is a 2 activations, it is a 1-card combo. All you need is a dragon in the graveyard. Branded Fusion is a 1-card combo. Branded Fusion, fuse your Tragedy and your Fallen of Albaz in the deck, send it to the graveyard. You'll summon Lebellion. Lebellion, discard 1 to fusion summon, and Tragedy will also search for Ad Libitum. So you add Ad Libitum, you fusion summon by shuffling back your Albaz and your Lebellion into your deck to summon out your Mirror Jade. And Mirror Jade non-targeting banishment by sending one of these clowns to the graveyard. So on the turn you summon it, you're going to want to activate the effect to send Albion to the graveyard, because at the end of that turn it's going to grab you Branded in red to summon out Chimera on your opponent's turn. I may be rushing through that combo, some of you may be scrambling to take notes. That is a very well established combo. We've played it several times on the channel already, and I'm sure that people who have been playing in like the likes of Gold and Platinum and Diamond are sick to death of hearing it. So slow down the video if you need to, but it's a very well established combo. So listen, it's really straightforward. Don't worry about it. If you've got the cards, just activate them in that sequence and it will all sort of like click in your head. It'll all make sense. And especially if you watch the gameplay where we execute the combo a few times in a row. So it's all fairly well laid out, so don't worry about that. But yeah, that's pretty much the deck. Honestly, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think since I changed it to this version, I've been having a lot more consistency. In terms of the hand trap choices, you can play basically whatever you want. I just sort of play what I like. Called by the Grave is very important. I would even argue Cross-Out Designator has a place, because you really can't afford to get ashed. You could even put, again, Branded and Lost also has a place in this deck. There's just a lot of things that can fit. So initially I was playing things like Dramaturge, I was playing Branded Lost, I was playing all of these cards. The only reason I cut them all out is that the deck was already somewhat bricky and I just couldn't justify putting any more things in. We wanted as many starter cards as we could. We wanted them backed up by as many protection cards and going second support as we possibly could, because that's how you're going to win the majority of games. These cards are going to help you in a minority of circumstances, but we're not looking to win some games very well. We're looking to win as many games as possible consistently. We're not looking for these niche little matchups where, oh, you opened up your branded fusion and your branded opening and your branded red, so your only search target is branded lost. Like, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for consistency, we're looking for power, we're looking for frequent wins, not few really fancy wins. But yes, that's my thoughts on it. If you have any changes you would like to make, if you have anything you disagree with, again, I'm not saying this is perfect. There are little adjustments you can make here and there. I don't think these adjustments make the deck better. I think they make the deck different. And I think that's an important distinction that people need to make. Just because you're playing it differently and still seeing success doesn't necessarily mean it's better. A lot of these have been performing sort of similarly. But yes, I'm going to stop rambling before I go off on another tangent. If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, subscribe and leave your suggestions down below for what you want to be seeing in the future. And that will do us for now. I'll see you on the next one.